There's a kind of tiredness that rest doesn't cure, neither sleep, nor vitamins, nor that late afternoon walk. It's a silent exhaustion that doesn't destroy, it simply reveals. It's as if the body is saying, I can't keep pretending anymore. And in that moment, when physical strength begins to falter, something unexpected happens. The soul, silent for so long, begins to awaken. It's hard to explain, but those who feel it know. Suddenly you realize you've spent years moving on autopilot. You worked, raised kids, took care of everything, except yourself. And now, even with aching backs, creaky knees, and a mirror that no longer reflects the same face, there's a new restlessness, almost like a child waking up inside a tired body. What does this different kind of tiredness mean? The one the body carries but can't quite smother in the soul. It means there's still life where they told you there was only an ending. It means that even without the urgency of youth, there is still urgency. The urgency to be who you are. Without masks, without fear, without further delay. Waking up at 50, 60, or 70 isn't about getting out of bed. It's about finally listening to yourself without noise. Without your children's voices telling you what you should do. Without the world's opinion dictating what's appropriate for your age. Without the old fears that silenced your desires for decades. It's in the quiet of the house that the soul finds space to whisper, you're still here, and you still can. Why do some only start to live when others say it's time to stop? Because only when the outside noise quietens can you hear the internal melody, that old song playing softly inside you, that urge to dance, even with tired feet. Maturity isn't the end of the road. It's the start of the road that is finally yours, paved with true choices, guided by a map that didn't come from others, but from your own heart. And yes, maybe your body doesn't respond with the same agility anymore. Maybe your face bears the marks of time that passed without warning, but inside, something has lit up. And that glow doesn't depend on age, because there is a time when the body does get tired. Yes, but there is also a time, perhaps this, when the soul finally wakes up. And when it does, there's no mirror that can stop its light from shining through. This is the time, your time, and it's still here. What if the pain in the body isn't the end, but the final warning that the soul is trying to wake up? There comes a moment when the mirror no longer reflects the face you remember. The features change, the skin thins, the contours around your eyes can no longer hide sleepless nights nor heavy days. And there's a silent frustration in that. It's not just vanity, it's a loss of identity. The frustration of looking in the mirror and not recognizing yourself, but also the silent invitation behind it. Perhaps behind the surprise of seeing time reflected there is a question that's never been asked. Maybe now, with this new appearance, can I finally stop pretending? Because for so long, you needed to look like what was expected of you. Strong, young, available, masked. And when the image can no longer uphold those masks, something opens. The chance to finally meet yourself for real. The physical discomfort might be the emotional push that was missing to transform from within. The aches that keep showing up. The rigidity the body creates. The exhaustion that comes with no apparent reason. Maybe it's not just biological. Maybe it's the body saying, I've held everything I could. Now, you need to look within. When the body gets tired, it's the soul that begins to call out. Because it knows it's been put off for too long. Dreams postponed. Desires swallowed. Cries hidden behind polite smiles. How the body exposes what the soul delayed. That pain in your shoulders might be the weight of all the no's you swallowed. That tightness in your chest, maybe it's the silence of a life with no space for what you truly wanted. That fatigue in your legs could be the weariness of always walking where others told you and never where you wanted to go. And then comes the invitation, not to fight against time, but to return to yourself with respect. A small gesture, a simple habit. Placing your hand gently on your own body. Upon waking, before rushing into tasks, breathing and asking, what do you need from me today? It's not a demand. It's a listening. It's returning to inhabit your own body as you would enter an old house, with care, with attention, with reverence. Yes, the body has changed, but it can still be home, temple, shelter. And when treated with respect, it offers something that youth never did: the wisdom of someone who has finally come back home to themselves. Because the soul doesn't demand a perfect body, it only asks for presence. What if the pain in the body isn't the end, but the final warning that the soul is trying to wake up? There comes a moment in life when clothes are no longer just fabric. They become shields, attempts to look younger, more alive, more accepted. But deep down, what so many of these clothes are trying to hide is the fear of having grown old before truly living. We wear makeup, smiles, control, but there comes a point when all of that starts to feel heavy. Because there's no filter that can hide the emptiness of someone who spent decades adapting without ever allowing themselves to simply be. And when the mirror no longer deceives, and the body no longer disguises, the soul whispers, "Can I show up now?" Why do so many only find their essence when their appearance is no longer a shield? Because youth sometimes is a rush that distracts. So much need to please, to achieve, to prove that the soul keeps getting postponed. Silently, day after day. But maturity holds a rare power. It no longer demands approval. And when no one is watching anymore, that's when you finally begin to reveal yourself, to accept the wrinkles, not as loss, but as the marks of someone who has started to reveal themselves. The marks of time may seem sad at first glance, but look again. Each line on your face is a path you've walked. They're scars from falls, memories of laughter, traces of tears no one wiped away. They're not ugly, they're real. And perhaps they are the first truths your face can tell without apologizing. And when you allow yourself to see these marks with tenderness, something inside opens up. It's like coming home after years lost outside of yourself. There's a question that can illuminate this return. What did you hide in your youth that now deserves to come forth? Think about that quietly. Some part of you that was kept locked away to avoid rejection, a passion never lived, a way of being that was pruned, a freedom that was stifled. Those parts may have aged along with you, but they're still there, whole, no longer waiting for time, but for permission. And now, with less rush, with less fear, with a smaller audience, you can allow them to emerge. Because when the soul stops hiding, it doesn't become young again. It becomes alive again. And that is much rarer, much more beautiful, much more yours. The soul doesn't age, but it does fall asleep when you forget yourself. There is a kind of silence that no one sees. It lives in tidy homes, in flawless routines, in full calendars, and empty hearts. It's that silence that shows up when everything should be fine. But it's not. The kids are grown, the work either settled or finished, the obligations fulfilled, and yet something tightens in your chest, a subtle but constant emptiness that asks without speaking, "Was that all?" That emptiness, which so many try to silence, is a sign of life. It's the soul wanting to move after being asleep for so long. It's her realizing that there's time left, but meaning missing. And when meaning is missing, life screams, even if no one hears. It's in this phase that many stories begin again, not out of courage, but out of necessity. Stories of those who started over when they'd already been told it's too late. People who let go of what was suffocating them, who decided to prioritize themselves after a lifetime of being last on the list, who looked in the mirror and no longer wanted to lie to themselves. Because there comes a point in life when continuing on autopilot hurts more than risking a new path. And it's right there that the soul awakens. But care is needed. It's easy to confuse routine with emotional anesthesia. Living on autopilot feels safe, but anesthesia also numbs desires, affections, hope. And sometimes, all it takes is a small gesture to wake the soul, a solitary dance in the lounge room, a memory that resurfaces with an old song, an honest conversation with someone who sees beyond what you show, or simply silence. Yes, silence. That sacred space where it's finally possible to hear what got lost along the way. The art of listening to what your soul is trying to say in the silences of everyday life. It's all there, in the weary sigh before sleep, in the longing for something you never quite got to live, in the desire to be touched, seen, heard, not by the world, but by yourself. The soul doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it whispers, and only those who have stopped running can hear it. And when you listen, even just for a moment, everything starts to change. The soul doesn't age, but it does fall asleep when you forget yourself. It's not the end of youth that frightens the most, it's what it left behind. The conversations that never happened, the hugs that were never given, the paths not taken out of fear, out of haste, or out of loyalty to what others expected of you. Sometimes, what hurts the most about getting older isn't the passing of time, but the awareness of what wasn't lived within it. And that's when memory shows up, not as punishment, but as a mirror. Memory isn't a burden, it's a reflection of what still beats within you. It shows what hurt, yes, but it also reveals what can still be reclaimed. How many times have you found yourself remembering something old and felt a warmth in your chest? A longing not just for people, but for yourself, for a part of you that was kept locked away, asleep, somewhere in the folds of time. This mirror-cold memory can show you more than losses. It shows you where your essence lies, that which made you come alive, even in the smallest things. Because the past can be a teacher, but it doesn't have to be a jailer. It teaches. It points the way, but it doesn't need to hold you captive. You are not the sum of your mistakes, nor the portrait of your absences. You are someone who had the courage to keep going, even without a manual. And now, maybe you can walk, not backwards, but inwards. There are questions that help transform memories into fuel, not into a prison. What part of your story still moves you, even if it hurts? What still makes your eyes sparkle, even if it feels out of reach? Who are you when no one is watching? These questions don't require quick answers. They ask for silence and surrender. Time didn't take everything. It simply cleared away the excess and left standing what is true, you, whole, even if tired, even with marks, even with fears. What remains standing is what matters. And from that, your now can be born. It's not age that makes you grow old. It's the internal silence that gradually builds up. It's pretending for so long that you don't feel, that one day the body starts to believe it. But there comes a time, and you know when it is, when you can't postpone the reunion with yourself any longer. The soul doesn't shout. It waits. It remains there, quietly, until you're ready to listen. Even with a tired body, there's a light that turns on when you reconnect with yourself. A light that doesn't come from the eyes. It comes from presence, from the way you begin to inhabit your own life. It's not a visible transformation. It's subtle, but those who see feel it. It's a different kind of glow that appears even when the skin no longer reflects youth. It's the lightness of someone who has finally stopped hiding. You still have time, not to chase what has passed, but to walk towards yourself. It's not about recovering what was, but about embracing what's left and discovering that deep down, what's left was everything you really needed. Because perhaps the greatest gift of maturity is this: waking up to a life that, at last, is yours, without asking for permission, without apologizing for existing. You don't need permission to listen to yourself, nor youth to start again. All you need is truth. And if it comes late, that's okay, because late is still time. And time, when lived with soul, is worth more than any idealized past. Now maybe you don't run anymore, but you can walk with certainty. And each step, even if slow, can be the most authentic one you've ever taken. Because when the soul awakens, time changes its rhythm, and what once seemed like an end reveals itself as a beginning. If something inside you stirred while hearing these words, don't ignore it. Maybe it's not just emotion. Maybe it's the first sign of your own awakening. You still have time. Time to look at your story with more tenderness. Time to say, enough of putting myself off. Time to walk. Not to prove anything to anyone, but finally, to belong to yourself. If this video touched what was asleep, allow yourself to keep this conversation going. Save this space. Share it with someone who's also tired of pretending. And come back here whenever you need to remember. The body may grow old, but the soul can still wake up.